officials in the family, they have now been killed. This investigation, though, still very clearly in its early stages. We have law enforcement that has closed off the block here. They say that this is going to be ongoing. We know they've been working on getting a search warrant to continue that investigation. And in the meantime, the bodies of the couple are still inside the home. We have, of course, had media out here since this news first broke. We know that some close friends of Rob Reiner showed up here on the scene. Billy Crystal, Larry David. Rob Reiner, of course, has been an incredibly impactful filmmaker and incredibly impactful for American culture.
There's security footage from December 13th, 2025. Conan O'Brien's Christmas party. You can see Rob Reiner laughing, his wife Michele's hand on his arm, their son Nick in the background, pacing. 18 hours later, Rob and Michele are dead in their bedroom, multiple stab wounds. Their daughter finds them when they don't answer the buzzer. And Nick, he's checking into a hotel by the beach. This isn't a story about a random home invasion. This is about what happens when a family's private hell becomes a public spectacle. When addiction doesn't just destroy the addict, it detonates everyone in the blast radius. Rob Reiner gave us When Harry Met Sally, The Princess Bride, Stand By Me. He was Meathead on All in the Family. He was Hollywood royalty, the kind of guy who made you believe in love and friendship and second chances. He believed in second chances so much, he gave his son 18 of them. 18 rehab stints, 18 times, hoping this would be the one that stuck. It wasn't. And on December 14th, 2025, in one of LA's most exclusive neighborhoods, that hope turned into a crime scene. I'm going to walk you through what happened, not the sanitized version, not the celebrity tragedy headline, the actual timeline, the psychology, the missed signs, the moment where love stopped being enough. Because here's what keeps me up at night about this case. Could anyone have stopped it? But to understand how we got here, we need to go back to the beginning.
Rob Reiner isn't just famous, he's formative. If you're over 30, he directed at least one movie that shaped your understanding of love or friendship or growing up. Stand By Me taught us that childhood friendships are sacred. When Harry Met Sally showed us that love can sneak up on you. The Princess Bride proved that true love is worth fighting dragons for, metaphorical or otherwise. Before all that, he was Michael Stivic on All in the Family, the liberal son-in-law who went toe-to-toe with Archie Bunker in millions of living rooms across America. He made you laugh, he made you think, he made you care. At 77, he's still directing, still politically active, still sharp as hell. The kind of guy who remembers your name at a party, asks about your kids, actually listens to the answer. Here's what people who knew Rob say. He was loyal to a fault. If you were his friend, his family, his collaborator, he had your back. Always. Even when it cost him. Especially when it cost him. Michele Singer Reiner was 70. While Rob lived in the spotlight, Michele worked in the shadows, in the best way possible. Photographer, philanthropist, the kind of woman who wrote checks without needing her name on a building. She cared about causes nobody was paying attention to. Kids aging out of foster care, mental health initiatives, addiction recovery programs. Yeah, addiction recovery. She and Rob had been married since 1989, 36 years. In Hollywood, that's not rare. It's basically impossible. But they made it work. Still held hands at industry events, still finished each other's sentences. The real deal. They lived in Brentwood. Think tree-lined streets, multi-million-dollar homes, gates and security systems, and the kind of privacy money can buy. Their house was warm, though, filled with art, books everywhere, the kind of place where you felt welcome the second you walked in. But there was a crack in that foundation, a presence that worried them, that kept them up at night. Their son, Nick.
Nick Reiner was 35 years old in December 2025, and he'd been fighting a war he was losing for almost 20 years.
Here's the number that should stop you cold. By 2016, 9 years before his parents died, Nick had cycled through rehab 18 times. 18. That's not someone who tried recovery and gave up. That's someone drowning, coming up for air, going under again, over and over and over. That's parents who kept throwing life preservers, kept paying for treatment, kept believing this time would be different. Rob and Michele never abandoned him. They could have. God knows they had reason to. But they didn't. They kept bringing him home, kept paying for another facility, another program, another chance. By 2025, Nick was living in their Brentwood home at 35. Not because he was lazy, because he had nowhere else to go. Addiction had taken everything. Now, I need to be crystal clear about something. Addiction is a disease. It's not a character flaw. It's not weakness. It's a medical condition that hijacks your brain's reward system and convinces you that you'll die without the substance you're addicted to. Rob and Michele got that. They weren't enabling. They were trying to save their son's life. But here's the thing about addiction. It doesn't care how much you love someone. It doesn't care how much money you throw at treatment. It doesn't care that you're a Hollywood legend who directed A Few Good Men. It just takes and takes and takes until there's nothing left but rage and shame and the desperate animal need to make something stop hurting. December 13th, 2025, Saturday night. Conan O'Brien's annual Christmas party is the Hollywood event. Invitation only, A-list names, the kind of party where you can have a real conversation because everyone there is somebody, so nobody needs to prove anything. Rob and Michele show up. So does Nick. Here's what witnesses remember. Nick wasn't right. He seemed agitated, off. One source described him as disruptive. Another said he looked unhinged. At some point during the evening, Nick approaches Bill Hader. Yes, the Bill Hader from SNL, from Barry. Bill's mid-conversation with someone else. Nick interrupts, tries to insert himself. When he's politely told it's a private conversation, Nick doesn't just walk away. He storms off, visibly angry, the kind of anger that makes people remember you at a party full of famous faces. And then it happens. Nick and Rob get into an argument. Right there, in front of Hollywood's elite. Voices raised, Rob trying to de-escalate. Michele looking worried, embarrassed, scared. Witnesses couldn't quite tell. Nobody knows what was said, but everyone felt the tension. Sometime that night, all three Reiners leave the party together. They drive home to Brentwood. It's the last time Rob and Michele will be seen alive. What happens next is where this case gets truly disturbing. Somewhere between late Saturday night and early Sunday morning, Rob Reiner and Michele Singer Reiner are killed in their bedroom. Multiple stab wounds, both victims. The coroner will later confirm they died within minutes of each other. Think about what that means. This wasn't one parent killed and the suspect fleeing. This was both parents, in rapid succession, with enough force, enough precision, enough determination to ensure both were dead. The timeline gets fuzzy here, but this is what investigators have pieced together. After the alleged murders, Nick doesn't stay in the house. He doesn't call 911. He doesn't turn himself in. He checks into the Pierside Hotel in Santa Monica, a boutique hotel on Colorado Avenue, ocean views, the kind of place you go to clear your head or pretend your life is falling apart. He stays there through Sunday morning, maybe into the afternoon, while his parents' bodies lie undiscovered in Brentwood. Meanwhile, back at the Reiner home, their daughter, Romy, is getting worried. She's supposed to visit.
She buzzes the security system. No answer. She tries again. Nothing. This isn't like her parents. They always answer. Always. Romy makes the decision to enter the house. She brings a friend, maybe because she's worried, maybe because some part of her already knows something is very wrong. They find Rob and Michele in their bedroom. Both dead. Blood everywhere. At 3:38 p.m. on December 14th, 2025, Romy calls 911. Can you imagine? Walking into your parents' house and finding that? Your father, Rob Reiner, the man who gave the world some of its most beloved films, dead in his own bedroom? The psychological damage from that moment alone is something Romy will carry for the rest of her life.
LAPD responds immediately. Multiple units, senior detectives. This is Brentwood. This is a double homicide. This is Rob Reiner. Within hours, they have a suspect, Nick Reiner. But here's where this case gets strange. They don't need to manhunt. At 9 p.m. Sunday, less than 6 hours after the bodies are discovered, LAPD gang unit officers locate Nick in University Park near USC. Not hiding, not running, not in Mexico or trying to disappear. Just there. He's taken into custody without incident. No chase, no standoff, no drama. One witness says he seemed disconnected, like he wasn't fully present in his own arrest. He's charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. First degree, not second degree, not manslaughter. First degree means premeditation. It means prosecutors believe Nick planned this, thought about it, made a decision to kill his parents. So here's what doesn't add up. If this was premeditated, why didn't he run? Why check into a hotel 5 miles away? Why not have an escape plan? And if this wasn't premeditated, if something snapped in the moment, why the first-degree charges? Hold on to that question, because it becomes crucial later.
Here's what we know about the physical evidence and what the silence tells us. The murder weapon? Police won't confirm what it was. Death certificates say multiple sharp force injuries. Could be a kitchen knife, could be something Nick brought with him. The fact that they're not saying is strategic. When law enforcement withholds details like this, it's usually for 2 reasons. 1, they want to weed out false confessions. If someone claims they did it, investigators can ask, "What did you use?" If they can't answer correctly, they're lying. 2, the weapon itself tells a story about premeditation. If it's a kitchen knife from the family home, that suggests a crime of passion. If it's something purchased earlier, that's planning. My gut? It's something that suggests planning, because if it were just a kitchen knife, they'd say so. The silence is loud. The crime scene. Both victims in the bedroom, multiple wounds. Death within minutes. Let me explain something about stabbing murders. They're personal, intimate. You have to be close to someone to stab them. You see their face, you hear them, you feel what you're doing. It's not like a shooting where there's physical distance. This is visceral. The fact that both parents were killed in the same room within minutes suggests one of 3 things. Option A, extreme psychological break. Nick was in a state of psychosis where he wasn't seeing his parents as human beings anymore. Option B, rage so overwhelming that once he started, he couldn't stop. The kind of fury that obliterates every other thought. Option C, cold calculation. He knew what he was doing and made sure both parents were dead before he left. Given Nick's history with addiction and the argument at the party, my money's on option B. But prosecutors are betting on option C with those first-degree charges.
Murdering his parents, Rob and Michele Reiner, was in a Los Angeles courtroom today, set to be arraigned and enter a plea. But it didn't happen. Things took an unexpected turn. Here's Chief Correspondent Matt Gutman, who was in the courtroom. Matt, what happened?
This was a dramatic moment in court. Now, Nick Reiner was supposed to enter a plea today, but instead, his high-profile lawyer, defense attorney Alan Jackson, simply stunned the courtroom.
We feel that we have no choice at this juncture but to withdraw as counsel and ask to be relieved.
The judge did not allow cameras to show Nick Reiner in court. He stood there, shackled, head shaved, and wearing a brown jumpsuit. Now, Reiner is facing 2 murder charges in the December 14th killing of his parents, actor and filmmaker Rob Reiner and Michele Reiner. Jackson, who famously won an acquittal in the murder trial of Karen Reed and represented Harvey Weinstein, offered no explanation, but said this about Reiner's case.
Take this to the bank. Pursuant to the law in California, Nick Reiner is not guilty of murder.
LA's DA Nathan Hochman later spoke and said that he has no doubt that a jury would find Nick Reiner guilty. If convicted, he could face the death penalty. He has been appointed a public defender, and his arraignment has now been rescheduled to February 23rd.
January 7th, 2026. Nick's arraignment hearing. He's being represented by Alan Jackson. If you don't follow high-profile criminal defense, understand this. Alan Jackson is a heavy hitter. He takes cases that make national headlines. He costs a fortune. Getting Jackson meant someone, Rob's estate maybe, or other family members, was funding a serious defense. The arraignment was supposed to be routine. Enter plea, set trial date, move forward. Instead, everything falls apart. Alan Jackson withdraws from the case completely. At the hearing, Jackson tells the judge he's pulling out due to circumstances beyond our control, but more importantly, circumstances beyond Nick's control. Read that again. Beyond Nick's control. What the hell does that mean? Speculative, but labeled. Jackson can't explain further, attorney-client privilege, but that phrase is doing heavy lifting. Here are the possible scenarios. Theory 1. Nick is having a complete psychological breakdown. He's not competent to stand trial. Maybe he's catatonic, non-responsive, or so detached from reality that he can't assist in his own defense. Theory 2. Nick is refusing to cooperate with his own attorneys. Some defendants self-sabotage because they want to be punished. They can't live with what they've done. Theory 3. Something happened with funding. Maybe the family cut him off. Maybe there's a dispute over Rob's estate. Maybe evidence emerged that makes the case unwinnable, and Jackson doesn't want his name attached to it. Direct address. My gut says it's theory 1 or 2, because going from Alan Jackson to a public defender is a massive downgrade in resources. Not because public defenders aren't talented, many are brilliant, but because they're drowning in caseloads and don't have investigative budgets. The Los Angeles County Public Defender's Office takes over. Deputy Public Defender Kimberly Green is now representing Nick. His arraignment gets pushed to February 23, 2026. That's a long delay for an arraignment. It suggests the court is evaluating whether Nick is even competent to enter a plea.
Let's talk about what we're really looking at. Parricide and matricide, killing your parents, are among the rarest forms of murder. We're talking about less than 2% of all homicides in the U.S. When they do happen, there are patterns. Pattern 1. Severe abuse. The child has been physically, sexually, or psychologically tortured for years. They finally snap. It's survival instinct overriding everything else. But nobody, not one person, has suggested Rob and Michele were abusive. Every account describes them as loving, supportive, endlessly patient. So we can rule this out. Pattern 2. Psychosis. The perpetrator is experiencing a complete break from reality. Hallucinations, delusions, paranoia. They genuinely believe their parents are demons or aliens or government agents. This is possible with Nick. Addiction, especially long-term stimulant use, can cause drug-induced psychosis. If Nick was using meth or another stimulant at high doses, he could have been hallucinating.
Pattern 3, financial motive, cold-blooded inheritance killing. But this doesn't make sense either. Nick was already living off his parents' resources. He had access to their money, their home, their support. What would killing them gain him, especially with siblings who'd contest any will? Pattern 4, explosive rage and substance-induced disinhibition. This is the one that fits. Imagine you're Nick. You failed at everything. You've been to rehab 18 times. You're 35 and living with your parents. Every time you look at your father, you see everything you're not, everything you'll never be. You're at a party, his party really, in his world, with his friends, and you're treated like the screw-up son. Someone dismisses you mid-conversation. Then your dad gets on your case. Maybe about your behavior, maybe about needing to leave, maybe about how you're embarrassing the family. And you're high, or coming down, or both. Every neurotransmitter in your brain that's supposed to regulate impulse control, empathy, consequence awareness, all of it is fried from years of substance abuse. So you go home, and the rage doesn't stop. It compounds. And at some point, maybe 2 a.m., maybe 4 a.m., something in you just breaks. Not an excuse, an explanation.
As of January 12, 2026, here's where things stand. Nick Reiner is being held without bail in LA County Jail. His arraignment is scheduled for February 23rd, more than 2 months after his arrest. That delay is significant. It almost certainly means his defense team is pursuing a mental health evaluation to determine competency. If he's found competent, he faces trial on 2 counts of first-degree murder. If convicted, he's looking at life without parole, potentially the death penalty, though California has a moratorium on executions. But here's what haunts me about this case. Rob and Michele did everything right. They got Nick help multiple times. They never gave up on him. They set boundaries while still offering support. They followed every expert recommendation, and they still ended up dead. So the question isn't, what did the Reiners do wrong? The question is, what does it say about our mental health and addiction treatment systems that someone can go through rehab 18 times and still end up committing double murder?
Here's what nobody wants to say out loud. Sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes even the best parents with unlimited resources and endless patience can't save their child from addiction. Sometimes the disease wins. Rob Reiner spent the last decades of his life trying to save his son. He never gave up, never stopped believing Nick could recover. And if the charges are true, that love, that refusal to abandon his son is what got him and Michele killed. That's not poetic. That's not a Hollywood ending. That's just tragedy.
Rob Reiner made movies about connection, about how relationships save us, how love redeems us. When Harry Met Sally showed us love can grow slowly. Stand By Me taught us that friendship shapes who we become. The Princess Bride promised us true love conquers all. But real life doesn't work like the movies. In real life, you can love someone with everything you have and still lose them. In real life, you can do everything right and still end up a crime scene. So here's what I want to know from you. Do you think Nick Reiner is a monster? Or is he a victim of a disease that destroyed him and everyone he loved? If you were on that jury, could you separate the addiction from the violence? Could you look at 18 failed rehab attempts and still call this premeditated murder? And bigger question, at what point does a family have to choose between saving someone and saving themselves? Drop your thoughts below. This case doesn't have easy answers.
If this got under your skin, if you're still thinking about it hours from now, you need to watch my breakdown of the Menendez brothers case or another family annihilation case, because these cases follow patterns, and understanding those patterns might be how we prevent the next one. Hit subscribe if you want true crime that makes you think, not just feel. And if you know someone struggling with addiction, check on them today, because the Reiners waited too long, and now they're gone.